It always amazes me how a lot of us tend to wait until the moment that we actually get called for the interview to begin preparing. And today, what I'm going to be sharing with you all is the strategy that I have used over the past, well, it's been 17 years at least, that I've been leveraging this technique to land every single job that I have ever interviewed for. Now, why is this something that actually matters for you? It's great for me, but what about you? What I know is that as a nurse, there are so many people who are competing for these non-bedside jobs. And if you want a job at the bedside, that's easy. Walk in and they're not even going to interview you. But today, I want to speak to those of you who know that you are destined for more, for greater. Not that the bedside is not great. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But if you know that you have a desire to be able to create an impact where it's 1 to X, meaning that your impact goes beyond people you can physically touch, this is for you. My name is Timmy Abiola, and I'm a registered nurse, have been for the last decade. And my background is in inpatient child and adolescent mental health, a little bit of outpatient on that side, but most of you know I actually now primarily focus on informatics. And the reason that this is something that I am deeply passionate about is in the nurses that I have coached, I have seen time and again, they are fantastic. They would do so well in an informatics role. They would do so well in a leadership or management role, assistant director role, whatever that happens to look like. But the problem is they don't know how to articulate themselves effectively. And that kills their momentum and it steals their confidence because they get to the interview stage time and again, only to be told we went with somebody who had more experience. Let me tell you right now that if you get to the interview stage and they tell you the reason they are not moving forward with you is that they went with somebody who had more experience, they lied to you. They lied to you. They already knew what your experience was before they called you for the interview. If they were worried about your experience, they wouldn't have wasted their time interviewing you. So it means that your interview technique is what needs work. And today, well, why don't we go up and bring up the direction that we're going to be going today, and then we can chat a little bit more what that's going to look like. But my goal for you today, before that, my goal for you today is to come away with at least two strategies that you're going to implement either by the end of this year or in 2026 to become a master of nursing interviews so that you can move forward in your career. And for those of you who desire to start a business, to build a side project, get a side gig so you can make that extra paper, that you have the capacity, the space, the mental energy left over in your life to do just that. Hello to you, Joy. Great to see you. Joy is one of my MVPs, one of the people who's been working the hardest right now to build something on the side. Great to see you here. And Willie, welcome to you too. As we go along, I will be keeping a very close eye on the chat. So if y'all have questions, feel free to just go ahead and drop them in there. But what we're going to just first start off with is just walking through a little bit about, I'll stop yapping and we'll get to it. All right. One of the things that I have always about the strategies that I'm going to share with you is that it's not anything special. It's not anything that I made up myself. I was just taught by people who came before me, who knew what they were talking about, who knew what they were doing. And I'm just trying to share that with you so that you can achieve your goals in 2026 and beyond. So here's what we're learning today: how to decode job postings like a pro, the STARS method, which many of you probably are aware of it, how to conquer your fear of behavioral questions, learning how to quantify your impact, because again, managers, they don't speak patient impact the way that we do. They speak it in numbers. And then an exclusive overview of the Nursension AI app, which is something I'm very excited to reveal today. This is almost like our soft launch. And so before we even get to who I am, my hope is this: if I deliver on my promise to be able to add value to you in such a way where you're able to get at least two things that you're going to take away from today, do I have your permission to share an opportunity to get to the next level in terms of what it is that we could do to work together, if that would be valuable? Again, only if I add value. If not, feel free to log out and go back to your evening. But I just want to ask for that permission. So if I have that permission, just go ahead and say yes in the chat. Azil, I'm sure I butchered your name. I'm sorry. Good evening to you too. But if I have your permission to share something with you at the end, an opportunity for you to take another step forward. Only if I add value. Just go ahead and say yes in the chat. All right. So who am I? Why am I even talking about this? Well, my name is Timmy Abiola, as I mentioned, and I have been a nurse for a decade, as I mentioned. I have, in addition to my inpatient child and adolescent mental health, as well as my background in informatics, I also have experience in quality improvement. And that is one of the things that has opened up tremendous opportunity for me. On the entrepreneurial side, founder, director, and chief automation officer, in case you're wondering what that is, of Enlightened Informatics. That is my AI and coaching agency, the company that has created the Nursension app that I'm going to be sharing later. And I've developed a lot of different solutions and tools, both in the health space and outside of it. But interviewing is one of those things that right from the bat, as I started developing all the tools and the apps that I've built so far, that I understood this was a great opportunity to be able to do that with. It all starts with analyzing the job posting. And in times past, when I've run a similar webinar, I've gone through and done all the analysis. We're not doing that today. We're keeping it simple. The first thing you need to do to become a master of nursing interviews is to learn how to analyze job postings. Because if you see a job posting and your first thing that you're looking for is the pay, I'm with you. You got to know if it's worth your while. But you got to take the time to understand, what are these people asking? Interviews are open book tests. And I really do mean that. They already told you everything they're going to ask you in the job posting, in the required qualifications, and maybe the certification or the educational background that they're hoping people will have. They've covered all of that. So it's your job to use the nursing process to assess, to delineate. I use that instead of diagnose, to plan, to then implement, and then evaluate or execute. You gotta just look carefully, because the clues that they're going to give you are all going to point to the behavioral descriptive interview questions that they're going to ask you. It's an open book test, so cheat. Preparation is key. You want to start off by listing down potential questions. What do you think they're going to ask you based on what they have said they're looking for? I'll give you an example. My first role in informatics was the Epic lead facilitator for my portfolio. I was selected to be the one to lead the rollout of Epic when we were changing over from Sunrise Clinical Manager in the child and adolescent portfolio. And so my role involved figuring out what the role was, because this was a brand new role in the organization. It had never existed before I had it. And then we also had to figure out how we were going to use our expertise in the system, even though I was still learning, to be able to roll this out effectively. So that obviously means that we are going to be doing a lot of teaching. So one of the things that they had listed in the qualification was knowledge and experience applying learning principles. Now, I had heard of adult learning principles. Did I know what they were? I did not. So what did I do? I went and I Googled that. Turns out that adult learning principles were looked at by this guy, I forget his name, Maxwell. See, I don't even remember. Maxwell something. And he essentially had, I think it was 4 or 5 tenets originally when he started looking at this in the 60s. And he realized that there were some specific nuances about adult learners. And so he wrote about them. And over time, people adapted them and they became adult learning principles. So, of course, get to the interview, having done my research, memorized the adult learning principles. And you'll notice I say memorize because I memorized it for that interview. I naturally do all of those things. So I didn't really see value in trying to just cram it into my brain. And then they had a question that said, give us an example of how you've applied adult learning principles in your practice and what adult learning principle is. And it was easy for me to be able to cover that because I had literally closed that gap. If you ever see a name or a term or anything you don't understand, make sure you look it up, because that will be the one thing that they will ask you. It's like when you do your NCLEX, that one area of nursing that you know you're a bit weaker in, the automated system is going to suss that out and give you plenty of questions in that. So be prepared. Then you got to make sure you master the stars method, which is a big part of what we're talking about today. And then get your questions ready. We're going to talk about that. Practice makes perfect. That's the part that ain't nobody want to do. Nobody likes reading their answers out loud. Nobody wants to record themselves answering questions. Nobody wants to take the time to listen back to those recordings, to refine, to see how many times you said, like, to see if you have these weird mannerisms. For me, when I used to get nervous, I would move my head a lot. You might even be seeing me move my head now. This is the toned down version. That's just naturally how I like to emphasize, but it was a crutch that I used to use when I was nervous. And so over time, I'm very fortunate, and this is actually how I got this. This is how I got this idea. I had an instructor in 4th year who had, I guess, noticed that this was something I was doing. And she essentially one morning when my brain was still waking up, this is before I started drinking coffee regularly. So it was the butt crack of dawn and I was still sleepy in my mind. She said, okay, I want you to tell me about so-and-so patient that we met with last evening. And I'm just going to record you if that's all right with you. Didn't tell me any other context other than that. So I was like, sure, no problem. I don't know what she's going after, but let me do it. So because she's putting me on the spot and it's awkward and I don't know what she's getting at and it's 8 something in the morning before I had my coffee kick in yet. This was literally the reason I started drinking coffee, so I could be awake at this time. So I'm nervous. I don't know what she's getting at. And then she turns around and she shows me the footage. And mind you, I was doing my placement at a injection clinic for patients with schizophrenia. So they come in for case management, get their med, and then we'll see them in a month. My head is going like this. I'm just like bobbing and weaving my head like crazy. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh my gosh. She didn't even tell me. She was just like, what do you see? And I was like, that is so distracting. And she was like, now imagine that you're a patient who is living with schizophrenia. You're trying to focus on that. It was hilarious. Now, I really appreciated that. Most people would think that's awkward or that's scary or that's weird. For me, I really appreciated that. She didn't have to do that. And I will never forget that. That was in like beginning of 2016, almost a decade ago. And I still remember that. Her name was Annie Laurie. She was a great, great preceptor. I still remember to this day because she put the time in to do that. But that taught me the value. You don't know what you don't know. You have no idea how you're coming across to people. You may think, your loved ones may try to tell you, but until you see it yourself, that's when you get to understand. Create an interview performance plan. I've heard it said, and I'm sure many of you have as well, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that is very, very true. True words were never spoken. And so what I recommend is you take the time to write out your plan, summarize the answers to your STARS formatted questions, which again, we're going to talk about: situation, task, action, results, and skills. Lay out specific things that you see that they're talking about in the requirements, in the job posting. And a very important piece, copy it, take a screenshot, download the PDF. Because what happens is when they start calling people for interviews, you won't have access to that anymore. So make sure you're proactive with it. Take the time to write down the questions you're going to ask. You're going to thank me for that later. Then the next step is to perform with confidence. You've taken the time to do your research. You've anticipated questions. You've recorded yourself. You've analyzed the footage so you can understand how you're coming across verbally and visually. The next step then is to perform. And yes, this is a performance. Again, think about what's potentially at stake. Jobs have the ability to transform somebody's life. They truly do. And so take the time to perform like that's the case, to prepare like that's the case so you can perform when you need to. Do not wear scrubs to the interview. I repeat, do not wear scrubs to the interview. Even if you're working on shift, bring a change of clothes, change into that, do your interview, change back. For me personally, I didn't want to do that, which is why I always opted to take interviews on my days off. But if you're one of those people who's like, oh yeah, I just don't want to have to come down on a separate day, so let me do it when I'm already at work. I mean, if that works for you, far be it for me to judge. Just keep that in mind. Body language is key. It conveys, that is your easiest way to convey confidence. I always like to have a half page of notes that I prepare ahead of time, literally a half page of notes at the most. And what will take up most of that space are the questions I want to ask or just space to take notes as the interview goes along. What you do not want to have happen is that you have multiple pages of notes, even a full page of notes, and that you're reading from a script instead of connecting with the people in front of you. Do not make that mistake. But at the same time, don't let them tell you that you can't bring notes into the interview. I mean, they have notes. Why can't you? Make sure that you ask the questions that you prepared. These are 4 questions that I can guarantee, when used strategically, when used effectively, will dramatically increase your chances of landing the job. Well, how do I know? And I should have put the screenshots in here. I've had so many people reach out to me to say, thank you so much for that video that you did on the questions. Thank you so much for sending that resource out. I just had an interview and the person was so wowed by it that they mentioned when they gave me the job that part of why they made that decision is because of the questions I asked. A quick caveat about, do you have any reservations about my candidacy that I can speak to and provide more clarity on now? If you're going to go for this question, make sure that you are prepared to answer whatever it comes about. The worst thing that could happen is that you ask this question, they come with a legitimate concern or gap in your resume, and you stumble. If you are worried that is you, please do not use this question. This question is only for those who know they slayed the interview. The benefit of it is that when you actually go to deliberate, like the interview team goes to deliberate, the interviewee no longer has an opportunity to intervene in that situation. This is why you want to air out anything that they may talk about amongst themselves as to why you might be a less suitable candidate. Do not leave that to chance if you know that it's slayed. If you know that your performance ate, or how the kids are saying these days. As a leader, what is your vision for the future of this department or organization? This is, by the way, something y'all should be writing down if you haven't already. Let me tell y'all, the number of even just business deals that I have landed because of this question, let alone all the jobs I've ever interviewed for, is more than I can count. Straight up. I'm telling you right now, this question will open doors you didn't even know existed. Why is that? It's simply because interviewing, while we like to think that it's this big, strategic, innocuous thing that operates with impunity and complete objectivity, that is patently false. That's definitely not the case. At the end of the day, the interview process is a human-centered process, and people who are liked by people will always have doors open to them. So what does this mean? When you get somebody reminiscing, when you get somebody feeling nostalgic, when you get somebody thinking about the vision of what they see in their future, and you are the one who brought them to that place, you automatically become a part of their vision of the future, which is exactly what you want when it comes to interviewing. People who go into leadership, management, they become a director, HR advisor, whatever. They did so because they felt that they would be able to make a difference. And I know that we sometimes get angry or annoyed with nurse managers that they've crossed over to the other side and become one of them. They're one of the suits now, or whatever it is that we say. But just remember, very few go into management with the intention of making the lives of nurses miserable. That just doesn't happen. People go into management, especially as nurses, because they have a desire to make a measurable impact. They felt that if they were able to have the ability to lead others, which that's a talk for another day, leadership and management are not the same thing. But they did that because they had a desire to be able to make a difference, to lead others to be able to support them in doing so. But sometimes along the way, the light in their eye just fades. They get chewed up by the system. They get told they must do this or they'll find somebody to replace them who will. And so eventually they just acquiesce. They say, you know what? It's not worth it. I got a family to take care of. So, yeah, I'll lay off those staff. Yeah, I'll limit staffing this way. Yeah, I'll stop ordering these supplies. It becomes a game of self-preservation. When you, as the interviewee, have the audacity to ask them, as a leader, what is your vision for the future of this department or organization? Just substitute the appropriate term. You know what they're going to do every time. I guarantee you. And if you get a reaction, message me and call me up. But this is what's going to happen. I can guarantee you. Oh, that's a really good question. And it's funny because even if they don't have a little goatee or a beard, they're still going to do the same motion. It's a universal thing when you get asked this question, because they're going to lay back and look up, and there's psychological there's ideas within the realm of psychology that when you look up, you're like trying to think back into the past or reminisce. As soon as you get them to do that, you've won. Granted, you followed the other steps, because now they go back to remembering why they went into leadership or management in the first place. Maybe even healthcare in the first place, depending on how far back they're reminiscing. And they will feel good, and they'll associate those good feelings with you because they were talking to you, with you, responding to your question when they felt those feelings. So they're going to associate those feelings with you. What are the top 3 priorities the successful candidate will be expected to focus on after orientation? We don't want to say what are the top 3 priorities because they're always going to tell you. Get used to the role, figure out how to collaborate with your team, how we do things. And then, they'll just basically say that. That's what we add after completing orientation. We already know all that. Then lastly, what are the issues that this unit, department, organization, substitute appropriate word, is currently facing that you're hoping the successful candidate will be able to help work to resolve? Again, you're positioning yourself as the solution to whatever problems they may be having. That's what you want. Managers hate solving problems, but unfortunately for them, that's their whole job. So if they hire people who help them solve problems, they'll be pleased. Now, which one of these questions is your favorite? Let me know in the chat. Is it 1, this? Do you have any reservations? 2, as a leader? 3, what are the top 3 priorities? Funny how I did that 3 on 3. And then what are the issues that are facing this department organization? Just drop a 1, 2, or 3, or 4. Let me know which one of these is your favorite. Then I'll tell you mine. I'm genuinely curious. Personally, I think that there's one better than the other. Joy says 4. Jazz says 4 as well. Kennedy says 2. Okay. I like that. Mine, I think I already kind of gave it away, is 2. The reason why is that the number of times, we got some additional ones here. We got Chini who says 4. Yep. Jason or Joanne, says 4. Tiffany says 4. Yeah, it is a safer question and it is more concrete. The answer is all 4 of them, actually. Got to use all 4. But yes, I agree. 4 is powerful because it frames you as a problem solver for that exact reason, as I said. But I like this one. It just gets people to reminisce, and I'm a sucker for nostalgia. That's probably why. All right. So what are the next steps here? The next steps are to continue refining. Keep working to build up your resume. Well, how do you do that? You do that by being involved in quality improvement. Whether you have a quality assurance, quality improvement committee at your department or not, there's always opportunities. You notice that there's been a rash of falls over the last couple of weeks. You approach your manager, assistant head nurse, whatever the setup is, assistant manager. Hey, I've noticed that we have had an increase in falls, and I'm wondering if we can look into why that might be. I have some thoughts. Would love to get your permission or your cooperation or collaboration to look into this from a quality assurance perspective. There are no frontline staff that talk like that, except for me and maybe a handful of other people I've met. The reason why is because most frontline staff would hate to do anything that's not directly related to their job duties. For me, I find doing patient care very fulfilling. However, it also can be the hardest part of the job, as I don't need to tell you guys. And so, what that meant for me was I wanted to be able to get as many opportunities as possible to use my brain to make money and an impact rather than my hands. So, build that resume up so that you have something to put, something to call out. When we're talking about metrics, it's important that we have information that quantifies our impact. And that's only how you can do that is by getting involved. Make sure your resume and cover letter and use a cover letter. Didn't mention it here. Make sure you're using a cover letter. Why? Most places do not require a cover letter. Some places don't even have a spot for you to upload them. But in nursing, we never use cover letters at all because we almost never need resumes even. But I'm going to tell you this. If everybody is doing one thing and you do something else that covers their one thing and maybe the next 2, 3, 4 things, you've automatically stood out. The whole interview mastery framework is intended to help you stand out. So don't do what the average person is doing. Network strategically. Take the time to build up those relationships. You never know when that is going to come in handy. Do not wait until you have an interview upcoming to ask people about being a reference. Be proactive in making that case today, all the time, right away, by doing good work. Then doors will be open onto you. Perfect your stars stories, which we're going to be doing that in a little bit once we get into the Nursension App. Access hidden opportunities. Do y'all know, especially for these non-bedside jobs, the vast majority of them will not show up on a traditional job board. And why is that? Well, it's because even if they did, they already know who they want into that position. And if you didn't follow these 3 steps, it ain't going to be you. So they're just putting it up there because the HR said they had to. Build the connections, take the time to network strategically, and just be about your business. So before I move off from this, let me ask you, did I deliver with granting you guys at least 2 things that you can take today and apply to become better at nursing interviews? Be honest. If I did not, say no. But if I did, say yes. If I did, just say yes. Let me pause here for a moment. Bring y'all back so I can see y'all properly. Well, let's see. I'm genuinely curious. Be honest. Be honest. We ain't out here lying. You ain't gonna hurt my feelings if the answer is no. All right. All right, I got something else for y'all. Joan saved y'all. She said yes. And so, of course, the other piece of what we were chatting about today was going to be how it is that you can actually practice this. Because, yeah, it's nice to be able to go and do this on your own. But if you really wanted to elevate your game, how would you go about doing it? Well, I'm very glad that you asked. So, who is this for? This is for people who want a structured way to achieve next steps. They want to achieve whatever transition is going to be as soon as possible. And you're ready to acknowledge that what it is that you're currently doing is not delivering what it is that you are looking for. Well, and I would like to present to you the Nursension AI app. So what is the Nursension app and why does this actually matter? Well, for that, we are going to go through a quick overview, and then I'm going to show you the app, and then we're going to do a demo specifically for nursing informatics. So the Nursension app is an app that is intended to provide career development tools, specifically AI voice agents to nurses who want to be able to develop in specific areas. We're starting off with interview mastery. And the reason we're starting off with interview mastery is 2 reasons. Number one, in January, there's always a massive spike in hiring. In fact, it's already starting now. September and January are those 2 areas where we see a lot of spikes in terms of jobs being available. So having the ability to practice 24/7 is huge. Being able to line yourself up either for our career development, career advancement, leadership, personal growth, or the bedside to business, which is what our webinar next week is going to be about, then you have a one stop shop to be able to do that. This app actually contains the knowledge, experience, feedback that I've gotten from coaching hundreds of nurses directly and indirectly in leveraging the strategies that I taught earlier to actually land interviews, specifically the STARS method, which I'll show you once we get into the app. People be loving it. The initial response has been fantastic. And if your goal is to be able to land a leadership position, to be able to transition to entrepreneurship, get paid what you're really worth, or to just build more confidence in communication in general, then this is for you. So I'm going to go ahead and pivot my sharing screen here, and then we'll take a little peek at the app. All righty. So this is the landing page here. And just be aware, yes, I did code this entire thing myself. And if you have a desire to actually also learn how to build these types of solutions, so you too can package your knowledge into an application or an information system that allows you to be able to make money while you sleep, make sure you stay to the end. So Nursension, as I said, is a platform for professional development for nurses. We've got those four main pillars. Oh, I just look at how beautiful this animation is. I was so pleased when I got it to work. But the goal is to be able to use this four-step framework to be able to accelerate career development. Whether you want to get into a leadership position, get into informatics, or start your own business, the pathway starts the same by discovering what your specific path is, learning the necessary skills, practicing both with a coach and then an AI coach, and then transforming your career is the result of that. And so it covers interview coaching, the leadership curriculum, and then the bedside to business blueprint, which is actually part of the bedside to business academy. Look at those animations. Aren't they beautiful? And so we've worked with a lot of different nurses over the years that have helped shape what ended up going into this application here. And for anybody who's interested, go ahead and just hop on to the website. I will go ahead and drop it here. And you can also join our distribution list so that when those of you who are not selected for early access want to be able to get access to it, then you have an opportunity to be able to be notified that will be made available. So why don't we go ahead and jump right in? So right now I'm logged in as an administrator. So I have a few other extra pieces here. And like I said, yes, is this not beautiful? I have coded all of this myself. No, I do not have a background in coding. As I mentioned, my degree is in nursing. However, in the world of AI, the age of AI, the way that nurses think, it allows us to be able to build systems because we're already system level thinkers. So now I was just applying the nursing process to learning how to communicate effectively, which is all things that I've spent many years as a nurse honing. So all that to say, gives you the ability to go in and see all your sessions, but let's get into it. So the persona that we're highlighting today is Dr. Sarah Chen. Dr. Sarah Chen is a informatics director that is interviewing us for a nursing informatics position. The STARS methodology is absolutely crucial when it comes to this. And when we complete this and do our evaluation, I'll show you what I mean by that. So now that I've shown you guys kind of what that view looks like from the administrator perspective, I'm going to switch to my learner account here so that we can complete our simulation. Now, what I am going to say is that in the world of AI solutions, there is a hierarchy. And to be honest, most of them are trash. Why are most of them trash? Well, it's because they build things without the intentionality or the knowledge behind them. And the beauty of being able to be a nurse is that we excel at teaching as it is. So why wouldn't we just take that expertise and package that into something that allows us to add value when we aren't even there? That's the dream. You make money when you sleep. So we're going to go in and walk through just a couple things before we get started. So specifically with this simulation here for interview training, we're looking at mastering the STARS method, talking about technical knowledge as it pertains to informatics, professional communication, as well as problem solving and role alignment. Then everybody who's using this is graded against this metric or this rubric here. And then we can minimize that and we can get to work. So we'll grant that permission to the microphone for those of you who will be getting early access to this. Is a very important step, don't forget. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. If you guys are not able to hear it once it starts off, which you should be able to, go ahead and just message me in the chat.
Hi, we're glad to have an opportunity to meet with you today. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Start off by telling us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Dr. Jen. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And my name is Timmy Abiola. I've been a registered nurse for the past 10 years. My background has included child and adolescent inpatient and outpatient, as well as quality improvement. But most recently, I've been in an informatics role as a clinical informatics analyst for the past 3 years. What I have learned is that nurses are uniquely positioned to use our experience, our skill set, the nursing process, and what it is that we understand and learn from working directly with patients to be able to create systemic change. And I've been able to do that in a few different ways that I'm sure we'll get into, but that's a high level overview of my experience. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to chat with you today.
Thank you for sharing that, Timmy. It sounds like you have a really strong foundation across clinical practice and informatics work. I appreciate you laying that out for me. So, you mentioned you've been in a clinical informatics analyst role for the past 3 years. Can you tell us a bit more about the specific systems and projects you've worked with in that position?
Absolutely. So when I started in the temporary position I was in prior to making the transition to my current job, I was working with Sunrise Clinical Manager, which, of course, as I'm sure you're aware of, is a very dated system. And we had the privilege of transitioning over to Epic, and I had that specific privilege of leading that work for the child and adolescent portfolio. Now, when we had actually started leveraging some of these different tools, I have a background in the ASAP module, which is for emergency, ambulatory, as well as ClinDoc, which is for inpatient, as I'm sure you know. I also have experience using Reporting Workbench and Slicer Dicer and some of the other reporting tools within the system. And what I have really appreciated about becoming more proficient in all these different areas is the fact that applying nursing knowledge perspective and the nursing process to these tools allows us to be able to bring the nuance that comes with the nursing perspective to a systemic level. An example of that is when I was participating in a project to actually optimize the rate of compliance with scanning for barcode medication administration. Yes, the data was telling us one story, but having worked directly on the floor, thinking about what happens in situations where I myself have overridden, I was able to actually take a more systemic approach to understanding some of these bottlenecks and these roadblocks and barriers that only those who have worked on the floor would understand, such as not having access to a scanner mobily, which we were able to ensure that all departments had multiple rovers, which allowed them to be able to do that. So those are some of the examples of the projects I've worked on, in addition to the systems I've used.
That's a really how clinical experience directly informs your informatics work. I see. Moving on to another area. You mentioned your background includes quality improvement. Can you describe your experience participating in quality assurance initiatives and how that shaped your approach to informatics work?
There was a time when I was working on an inpatient unit where we had a high degree of safety issues that were popping up because items were being left out in an unsafe way. And what I realized in that moment was that rather than just continuing to complain about it or to bemoan the fact that not everybody was on the same level when it came to securing the environment, I met with a few other staff as well as our nurse clinician. And we ultimately then founded the Quality Improvement Committee. The first goal of this committee was to create a consistency across shifts manual. And this manual actually allowed us to consistently provide care, regardless of whether it was day, evening, or night shift. When we met to actually pull this together, I took it upon myself to really emphasize the pieces of the nuances between the different shifts and to encourage others to participate in the process so that we could get holistic input. And as a result of that holistic input, when it came time to actually implement this, there was much more buy in the process. And again, coming from a change management perspective, We know that when there is buy-in and participation in the planning and implementation phases, then the transition to sustainability is made easier. And as a result of that, we were able to reduce the number of unsafe items being left out and reported by 40% over 3 months. The skills that I used in that situation were change management, staff engagement, proactivity, leadership, and community building. And these are skills that will continue to serve me well throughout my nursing career.
That's a great example of how you approached a systemic issue from multiple angles. I appreciate that. Let me ask you.
All right, that's enough of the demo there. But I wanted to just show you the power of how far AI has come, and more importantly, the power of AI when we are building in nursing perspective, experience, and understanding. Because I guarantee you, there is no IT company on the face of the planet that could have created what I've created here with the nuance that comes with interviewing for informatics positions. There's not one. Now, let me flip to the other side here. So, of course, it's all well and good to be able to actually do that. But how do you know how you actually did? That's also equally important to be able to find out. So, the other part of this is that we actually have, oopsie, if I could type my password. We also have the ability oh my goodness, give me 1 second here. We also have the ability as administrators and as coaches to be able to then manage that and actually evaluate and see what's actually going on. Oh, caps lock was on, that's why. Now, the reason why I really felt it was important to have some sort of evaluation element, and Joy, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate that. Glad that you were wowed. If anybody else was impressed with what it was that they saw, go ahead and just say wow or yes in the chat. I know Joy is not the only one because I know myself this is amazing. I ain't even going to wait for y'all to answer that one because I already know that that was fire. The amazing thing about being able to leverage, oh, this is totally the wrong one. Let me switch here. The amazing thing about being able to leverage tools like this is the fact that when you have an understanding of something that is unique to your experience, your skill set, your clinical area, and you're able to build a system around it, that is how you monetize your knowledge in a way that nobody else can. Because I guarantee you, yeah, as time goes on, there will be more people who are building tools like this for sure. But nobody has built a tool with the level of nuance that I have so far. And even when they do, it's going to be a cheap imitation at best. So now, as an administrator or a coach, I have the ability to go in and review the sessions of the people who have completed them. And so we'll give it a second here to kind of load that particular session, but we'll give you an example of what that looks like when somebody hasn't actually done a great job of that. So in this example here, this was just one that I was testing a couple of weeks back when I was just going through about the stars method and the actual rubric for that. When it comes to the stars method, it's very important that we understand that situation, task, action, results, and skills are five very important elements of providing a holistic answer. So even in the answer that I just provided to Dr. Chen there, you're able to see that I had actually gone through and hit all of those pieces. I had been pretty particular and thorough in terms of giving that background for the situation, talked about what I realized, what I identified I needed to do and why, which is act or task, and then action, results, and skills. When you talk about action, it's very important that you don't say we. You'll notice that I had mentioned we a few times in the beginning, but then afterwards I pivoted to all the things that I did that actually allowed me to be able to create that impact. And you also notice that I then talked about results. What was the result? The reduction of 40% of unsafe items being left out. Yes, Toby. Wow. Yes, Shalima. I'm glad to hear you agree. Now, it's very important that we take the time to do that because, yes, they would have heard you say all these wonderful things, but why does that matter? Like, why does that actually matter at the end of the day? Well, we need to let them know. Now, we also want to take the time to demonstrate technical expertise, which, of course, when I started talking about all those different areas that I had worked in, as well as the quality improvement, the modules that I've used within Epic, that covers that piece there. And then talking about professional presence. How do you communicate? That's the reduction of ums and ahs and all of those types of pieces. Critical thinking and problem solving, very important part. especially because critical thinking is a core competency for nurses. So we need to learn how to demonstrate that consistently. And then talking about role alignment, how well did you shape your experience to the specific role and what it is that they would be expecting or looking for? Crucially important. And so, what we then have the ability to do. So, here in this situation, like I said, it was just a super short session where I was just doing some testing. And so I didn't really say anything. So, what did it do? It gave me a 1.8 out of 5. And why is that? Well, it said, yeah, you did a good job kind of introducing yourself and thanking Dr. Chen for the opportunity. But there was no stars. Again, this is not this one, it's still processing in the background, but we'll just move forward for the sake of time. So, in a situation where I barely said anything, obviously it's going to talk about how you didn't use the stars method. It's crucial, which is why the system I built will always assess and analyze for that. Got to make sure that you are applying those critical thinking elements. So then here when it talks about recommendations, these are things that we would expect the learner, you, to then go and actually apply, to take the time to implement this feedback. And then you'd be able to try again and then see how it actually compares and contrasts over time. The reason that, again, I really wanted to show this was twofold. Number one, so that you guys have a clear understanding of what it actually takes to interview effectively for these types of jobs. If y'all thought that getting bedside positions might have been tough back in the day, I can guarantee you it takes a lot more to land a non-bedside job, especially in informatics. Why is that? Because everybody wants to be an informaticist now. So this is something that is absolutely crucial to be able to understand, which is why we built Nursension. So how does this all kind of come together? Well, we are at the phase now where we actually are going to start opening up the platform for the initial people who are going to be testing it. Well, it's beyond testing. It's those of you who are actually going to be able to get early access to actually walk through, get your hands on this tool so that you can start mastering interview technique and strategy by the end of this year. So that when it actually comes around to 2026, you're prepared with the knowledge, the skills, the stories, the narratives that are needed to be able to articulate your impact in a powerful way and start landing these jobs that are going to take your career and your life to the next level. So, if that is something that you would find to be valuable, what it is that I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and drop the link for the onboarding call for Nursension in the chat here. That's it. That's the extent of the offer. Y'all said that I did add the value. So this is what I'm going to share. That's what it is today. We're looking to be able to get that first set of individuals who want to be able to use this platform to be able to increase their expertise and get ready to start interviewing for these jobs that are going to take their life to the next level. Now, if you are somebody who also wants to learn how to build tools like this so you too can monetize your nursing knowledge, then what I would encourage you to do is to take the time to mention that. When there's a question in there that says, is there anything that you would like to share to prepare for this meeting? And if you would see value in being one of the first people to get access to this application, to start leveraging it to become a master of nursing interviews and to be coached by me to be able to do that, go ahead and use this link to be able to book that onboarding call. We'll walk you through the platform, get you set up, assign you to a coach. I always oversee it as well. And then allow you to start practicing and then give you that feedback. Because I'm sure you guys saw there's a section there for instructor comments as well. AI generated is powerful. Got to make sure that we keep the human at the center of any AI implementation. And as a nurse, I believe it is your responsibility to take the lead in that. If we do not take the lead in terms of AI implementation, it will be dictated to us, for us, and on us. It's my belief that it has to happen through us. And I take great pride in my ability to be leading in this field. Joy, I'm going to give you a special shout out to you're a great example of that, to leading in your area, using your expertise and bringing that in. And so, more than anything else, the two biggest takeaways. If you want to become a master of nursing interviews, you need to master the STARS method. And if you want to master the STARS method, you need Nursension AI. In case you're wondering, what is Nursension? Nurse Ascension. Nursension. Because that's what we're doing in 2026 here. We're ascending, we're moving to the greater heights, achieving what it is that we previously thought was not possible for us, so that we can make that kind of money that allows us to be able to do what the average nurse cannot do. I'll stick around for maybe a minute or so to see if there's any questions. Shalom, it looks like you might have a question. Hello to you too. I trust that this was valuable to you. I'm going to go ahead and pin this right here. I don't know if y'all will be able to actually copy that down. I'll go ahead and share this here. See, actually, yeah, it looks like you might be able to click it here. If you're not able to click it, keep an eye out. I'm going to send out an email shortly after to those who did register for this webinar, which is all of y'all. And so you can keep an eye out for that. I will embed that link into that email. Also, you would have received a text message from me if you had registered ahead of time prior to. So make sure that you keep an eye out on that, as some additional information will be coming out. I'll send out this link here too. With that, we've had a great time today. Y'all have been a great and engaging audience. The most important thing is to not just be hearers of the word, but to be doers. And the key to being doers is to shorten the time frame between ideation to action. If you can do that, not only will you become a master of nursing interviews, not only will you be able to land that job that will take your career and life to the next level, but you'll be able to actually create the sort of life that allows you to live your life so that the use of your life exceeds the length of it. Take care, stay blessed. Look forward to seeing those of you who will be those first ones onto the Nursension app to then ascend to greater heights in 2026. Take care, stay blessed.